What's up, people? This is Lucas the Loudmouth, and today I'm here gonna come at you guys with another big topic for the week of discussion, and that topic is Super Bowl 50, which will be played this Sunday between the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos in California, San Jose, and this is going to be one hell of a game. I'm going to give you guys my predictions as to who's going to win Super Bowl 50 and become the champions of the 2015-2016 season. First of all, I just want to say, congratulations to Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos for once again making the Super Bowl. And, how ironic is it that Super Bowl 50 is being headlined by the great legend in Peyton Manning? There's been talks for the entire season about how this possibly might be his last season and how he's going to call it a career and retire after this season is over. And there's been a lot of backstories with Peyton Manning, and he's been making headlines. So it's only fitting that this same man right here, this great quarterback, is the headline for Super Bowl 50, a turning point in the NFL as they reach their 50th Super Bowl. And that Super Bowl is to be headlined by Peyton Manning. It's almost like a changing of the guards happening in the league right now, because Super Bowl 50, that's 50 years of football in the National Football League. And Peyton Manning, for the most part, for the last 2 decades, has been, in a lot of these Super Bowls played, and he was the face of the NFL. And now, with Super Bowl 50 arriving, it seems like they're entering a new era and a new movement once this season is done. Once the Super Bowl is done. So if Peyton Manning does decide to call it a career and he retires after Super Bowl 50, it's gonna be a huge change in the NFL. He made so much of an impact, and it's just gonna be sad the day he goes, and the NFL will forever be different after he goes. So I'm just honored, and I love the fact that it's being headlined by him. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. I think Peyton Manning deserves Super Bowl 50. And as far as Cam Newton goes, well, there's not only a storyline for Peyton Manning, there's also a storyline for this guy, Cam Newton, the underdog, the guy that no one has seemed to trust and no one has seemed to love. There's been a lot of critics about for Cam Newton over the last few years, and people thought he'd never make it to the top. People think he's arrogant. People have always considered him, the underdog, and there's not been many people on his side. And here this guy comes who came out of nowhere a few years ago as the #1 overall draft pick, and he just put on a show. He's been performing the last 2 seasons, and he's proven people wrong, and now he's made the Super Bowl, and he's a young guy. He's never made the Super Bowl, so this is going to be his first shot at it. There's a storyline there for both sides in the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers. You had the rematch also of Juan Rivera against Peyton Manning. If you guys are not familiar with this storyline, Rivera was the Chicago Bears defensive coordinator back in 2007 when the Bears went up against the Colts, and Peyton Manning was the quarterback at that time for the Colts, and Peyton Manning beat Rivera's Chicago Bears that year. So it's kind of like a rematch, except this time Rivera's the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So, there's that story, as well as the story of Gary Kubiak making his first Super Bowl as a head coach. So that's a great story for him too. But with all of that being said, it's now time to talk about the Super Bowl 50 and what I predict will come out of Super Bowl 50 this Sunday. First off, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a close game, I think, as well. And by no means necessary do I think it's going to be high scoring, because you take a look at both of these defenses for the Panthers and the Broncos. They by far have the best defense, the best defenses in the league. There's no one that could be able to top what the Carolina Panthers did defensively in the NFC this season. And the Denver Broncos are by far the best freaking defense in the league, in the entire league, especially in the AFC. So it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a defensive game from both sides. Both the Panthers and the Broncos are going to bring it defensively. So I don't think we're going to get a high-scoring game at all. And as far as the offenses go, I don't expect this to be a blowout. I think both quarterbacks will deliver and both quarterbacks will perform decently enough. I don't think either one is going to make a lot of mistakes either. You have Peyton Manning, one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, and Cam Newton. We all know how much mobility he has and how big of an arm he has. But he's never been at the big stage before, so that's going to be into question. But the reason I say this won't be a blowout, and people could probably argue that it could be a blowout. It's possible if the Broncos get blown out because it happened 2 years ago when they faced the Seahawks. There's a difference between that Seahawks team and this Panthers team, all right? First of all, with the Panthers and the Seahawks, the difference is that the Seahawks defense was way better than the Panthers defense is this year, in my opinion. Because as far as the Panthers defense is concerned, they only have a few key players there intact that keep that defense stable, starting with Norman, of course. Whereas the Seahawks, they just had an entire freaking group of defenders there. And another thing about that year's Super Bowl back from 2 years ago when the Broncos faced the Seahawks was the fact that the Broncos didn't have any help on defense. The Peyton Manning didn't have any help from his team defensive-wise. They had to rely on offense only. And unfortunately, it was unfortunate for Peyton that he went up against the best defense in the league that year. But now this year, Peyton Manning finds himself with his team having the best defense, which is why I think he's going to get help. So he doesn't necessarily have to rely on only himself to win this game. Now he has the best defense, and I think they're going to make enough stops on Cam Newton and the Panthers to keep this game close. And that's why I say it's not going to be a blowout. And you also have Cam Newton, who has played many close games this season, and they've been close to breaking. So I don't think the Panthers are unstoppable offensively. It was proven almost 2 or 3 weeks ago now when they faced the Seahawks in the second half that they were shut down, couldn't score any points, and the Seahawks almost made a comeback. There's been many close games like that, including the game against the Giants as well, and the Giants came back and tied it up, but then the Panthers won late with just seconds left on the clock. So it's not impossible to beat the Panthers here, So there's a huge difference between that Seahawks team from 2 years ago and this Panthers team. I think Peyton Manning has more faith in his team this year, given the fact that he was able to be benched for like 7 or 8 games, and the Broncos were still able to win games without him. That goes to show you that he does have help, whether it was with his backup quarterback or whether it was with his defense. The Broncos won many games without Peyton Manning. And hell, even in games where Peyton Manning struggled, they still ended up winning because that defense made a lot of stops. So I definitely think that this is a much more stronger and more confident, relaxed Broncos team than the team from 2 years ago we saw in the Super Bowl when they went up against the Seattle Seahawks. So this game is definitely going to be close. As far as the Carolina Panthers go, defensively, I think that they're not going to always stop Peyton Manning. I definitely don't see them shutting down Peyton the way that the Seahawks did. I think Peyton Manning, because of his offense being unpredictable this season, and what I mean by that, obviously, is Kubiak running plays and choosing to run more as opposed to throwing all the time. I think that if they open up that can of worms and the Broncos don't necessarily pass all the time, I think they're going to get away with big plays and they're going to make big plays happen this Sunday. And the Panthers are probably not going to expect a lot of these games, or a lot of these plays. So I definitely think that Peyton, not only does he have defense to help him out, but he also has a running game to help him out this year. So, I don't see the Panthers defense completely stopping or annihilating the Broncos on offense. I think that the Broncos offensively will score a few points, probably a few more points than the Panthers. And yes, that's a little hint there as to where I'm going with this. So that's basically what I think is going to happen. And as far as Cam Newton is concerned and his team on offense, You're going up against the best defense in the league. The Broncos definitely have the edge. So I'm willing to say that, the Panthers are the underdogs and the Broncos are the top dogs, So I think that Cam Newton is going to find himself in a position to feel more pressure than Peyton Manning. I know there's the talk of Peyton struggling in the playoffs in the past, but I've already brought up why I think he's going to be more confident this Sunday. Whereas with Cam Newton, he's never been in this position before. Even though his team has played exceptionally consistent enough the entire season and they've played well, this is the big game now. This is the best game of the year. This is the top game of the year. So will the Panthers feel that pressure? Will they get nervous? Will they shake? Will Cam Newton shake? And I think it's possible. I think he's in this position now where he's going to feel a bit vulnerable heading into Sunday. And probably on Sunday when the game is played, you are going to see Cam Newton struggle in the first half. I definitely see that happening. I don't know if he'll turn the ball over. I doubt it because Cam Newton has feet to rely on if he doesn't see a play happening down the field. So I think he won't turn the ball over. But at the same time, I think he's not gonna make the most intelligent plays. I think that the Broncos defense is gonna pressure him. I think they're gonna make him shake, much like they made Brady shake. I don't think he's gonna have enough time to think to make a great execution on offense. So I think Cam Newton, be prepared because this Broncos defense is going to come after you and attack. But like I said, this game is still going to be close as well. There's not going to be that many touchdowns scored. You're probably going to see a lot of field goals. So we'll just have to wait and see. As far as my overall prediction goes, I have the Broncos winning the Super Bowl this year. I think the final score is going to be 23-20. That's right. It's going to be 23-20 with the Broncos winning on a field goal. So that's my prediction. I think that Peyton Manning is also going to have his struggles in the game, but they're not going to be showcased as much given the fact that the Broncos defense is going to show more support for Peyton Manning than the Panthers defense will show support to Cam Newton. And I actually also think that the Panthers defense won't play terrible. I just think it's going to come down to Cam Newton actually making a few mistakes. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean turnovers, but I just think he's going to make a few mistakes to cost his team the game as well. So we'll have to wait and see, but ultimately that is my prediction. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, like I said, and this is a great story for both Peyton Manning and Cam Newton. It's fitting because you have, possibly the guy that's going to take over the NFL in Cam Newton going up against the guy who's been the king of the NFL for so long. This story is there, and I'm excited, guys. So that's my prediction. Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos are going to show up and play this Sunday. It's going to be completely different from what it was 2 years ago. And with the Carolina Panthers, who have never been in this position before, do not expect them to shine. Do not expect them to completely dominate. I think the Broncos will be ready.